Time to talk Gators here at the Voice of College Football. Please like the videos, share the videos on social media. If you enjoy them, others will as well. Please hit that bell for the notifications once you've subscribed. That way you know when we're going live and uploading content. We got Jackie Franchuli on the line from allgators.com on the SI platform for Florida Athletics. Jackie, how are we doing today?
I'm doing well, Mark. How are you doing?
I'm doing just fine. Appreciate you stopping by to give us the word on the Gators' first scrimmage. So Florida hit the football field much sooner than most teams across the country and have already been on the field for a couple of weeks now. We're getting some reports from this first scrimmage. So what do you have for us?
Yeah, sure. So it was a closed scrimmage. So we were kind of going through our sources, and everyone kind of agreed that the defense won the day. So you can take it in two different ways. You can say it got better or the offense got worse. It kind of depends on your glass half full, glass half empty type of person. Defensively, a lot of the young guys really showed out. I've heard Derek Wingo, the second-year linebacker, had a really great day. Obviously, you can't hit the quarterback during these scrimmages, but he would have had several sacks. Tyron Hopper, a linebacker that I've been a fan since he's gone into Florida, and I expect him to have more playing time this year. He had a pick during the scrimmage. From what I'm told, apparently his IQ is a little higher when it comes to the playbook. One of the things that allegedly the reason why he didn't play much last year was still learning the playbook. And I understand Granton's defense can be a little bit more complicated than most. So I've heard that he's done a really good job of learning the playbook. So in my mind, that makes me think that he's going to be playing more in the next year. And he certainly impressed during the scrimmage. I think Donovan McMillan is another name that we keep hearing has done very, very well. Now, on the offensive side of the ball, during that scrimmage, we heard that the quarterbacks, all of them, not just, one certain quarterback, had 5 picks on the day. So obviously that could be a little concerning. The offensive line didn't have the best day covering. They didn't allow the quarterbacks to have a lot of time. But in the same time, Lorenzo Lingard, one of the running backs, had a really long run touchdown from what we heard. So I think there were some good things that we're hearing from the scrimmage, but obviously some concerning things and some expected things. Don't forget, a lot of these guys are going through spring practice for the first time. They didn't have spring last year. It was shocking to me that Kara Elam spoke to us earlier this week, and he said this is the first opportunity he's had to have a spring, and this is going into his third season. So it's quite remarkable when you think of those lines like that. After missing last spring, some of these guys are behind, especially the young ones who might have early enrolled thinking that they're going to have a spring underneath their belts. They also didn't have opportunity to get coached up by Nick Savage, for instance. They were, getting YouTube videos last year at this point of the year, while the pandemic starting. Nick Savage couldn't have them in the weight room. They did YouTube videos. And according to Savage, he said some of these guys were using animals like pets, like dogs and cats as dumbbells. So you can see, you can understand why some of these guys are going to take a little while, but the good news is spring has helped certain guys develop, and a lot of the young guys are showing some good development. It's just now it's working on making sure you have that chemistry. Obviously, a lot of moving pieces on that offense. You're not going to have Kyle Pitts. You're not going to have Kadarius Toney. You're obviously not going to have Kyle Trapp. So those are the big things that we've heard from the scrimmage. And it depends on what type of fan you are. If you want to look at the negative or the positive. If you're negative, well, you're going to think of the offense. But at least positively, the defense could be moving in the right direction. And honestly, seeing what we did from last year's defense, I'll take that as a good note.
And to take what Jackie just laid out for us in the example of Kyrie Elam, if you do the logistics here, we're talking about one of the better players in the SEC at his position. He's a junior, correct, Jackie?
Correct.
So with no spring practice last year and then him arriving on campus at the normal time, not as an early enrollee, I'm taking as a freshman. Yes, it's kind of surprising to hear that a junior is participating in spring drills for the first time.
Yeah, it's quite remarkable, and it's quite a revelation when you think about. So, like I think Dan Mullen said, over a third or nearly half of his roster are going through spring for the first time. That's a lot of numbers. And honestly, a lot of the development happens during spring, and especially between that time between spring and fall camp, because you're looking at the film that they have in the spring. You're getting coached up. You're going with your teammates. For example, the O line kind of is able to meet with each other and go through things. That's when you bond with your team. Quarterbacks are throwing for wide receivers. Obviously, coaches can't do much in that off time, but they're able to get better. And with COVID last year, you didn't have that ability. You didn't have that film, especially the younger guys who just got on campus. Let's say like offensive lineman Josh Braun, who I thought was going to be one of those guys last year that could kind of manage going in that first team. But because he didn't have that spring, he wasn't able to kind of break through, because you need those couple weeks just to get some individual development, and then use the off season to grow from those things that you get coached up in those weeks in spring. So there's a lot of good things when you consider all the mistakes that Florida did last year. Although, honestly, the defense, a lot of the veterans made those mistakes. If you look at the younger guys that made those mistakes, you can say reasonably that could possibly be because they didn't have a spring practice underneath their belt. And it could possibly be, we've talked about how Todd Grantham didn't move those younger guys in. It could be for him, he didn't see them move forward as quickly as they possibly could, because they didn't have that ability to have that spring. So I'm going with the benefit of the doubt, because I'm trying to be a better person in 2021 and be hopeful and optimistic. So I'm thinking that having spring, a lot of the problems that we saw in 2020 can be cleaned up. If, the one thing that I would like to see is more accountability throughout the entire team. But some of the things, individual mistakes, we can honestly think that having spring ball underneath their belts will help this team.
I'm with you, Jackie. Let's be optimistic about life in general and hopeful, even though it seems in many ways as though 2020 is a 15-month long year. It just keeps going and going and going, spilling into 2021. Got Jackie Franchuli on the line from allgators.com. You see the banner right there. Catch her work on SI. Again, it's allgators.com. You know what people's typical listening habits are like, Jackie. If we polled the viewership after this video and asked them the one thing that they're going to remember from this, it's going to be 5 interceptions. That's going to shock Gators fans, and they're going to be like, whoa, can we get that Trask guy back for another year or do something?
Yeah, and that's why I kept trying to reiterate all the good stuff that we heard, like on the defense and Lorenzo Lingard scoring that long touchdown in the scrimmage. Yes, there was 5 picks, but you have to also consider, again, this is the first spring practice. This is the first time that you have really, although Emory Jones has had a couple of reps in notable games, you're still, trying to organize an offense around different pieces. Again, Kyle Pitts is not going to walk through the door. Kadarius Toney is not going to walk through your door. The O-line, John Hevesy is trying to figure out who's going to be the new center, because Brett Heggie is gone. So you're trying to rep different guys at center, like Ethan White and Stuart Reese. So a lot of those pieces that you expect to have some chemistry at this point, there is no chemistry yet. So you're going to have mistakes. So you must consider they're going to grow that chemistry and grow to know each other and how they play over the course of spring, over the course of the off season, and then obviously in fall camp. So let's take the positives in that. And honestly, some of those picks were also some of the, we had first year quarterbacks like Carlos Cerullo also participating in practice. So that is something that we also have to consider.
Jackie, you mentioned the long run by Lorenzo Lingard. I think that the running back situation is pretty fascinating, because you've got experience coming back. Then you got the DeMarcus Bowman coming in from Clemson as a 5-star. And anytime you say 5-star, college football fans go crazy and figure out, just roll the red carpet out and let this guy start and start giving him the football, regardless of what else we see. He's a 5-star. And then Lorenzo Lingard certainly was a highly sought after high school football recruit coming out of, coming onto campus first at Miami. So the running back situation is pretty intriguing.
No, for sure. And Lorenzo Lingard is actually a former 5-star as well. So you've got Lingard and Bowman, who honestly I would be very shocked if they don't feature quite prevalently in the next season. And Bowman did not participate in the scrimmage or the practice prior due to an injury. We aren't quite sure what exact the injury is, but we were told by one person that it could be more precautionary when it comes to the scrimmage. We're still kind of digging to see exactly what is going on there. But yes, Lorenzo Lingard and Bowman, those are 2 very intriguing prospects, 2 very, very talented running backs. And then you consider they already had a lot of returning guys on that running back room with Dameon Pierce coming back, Naquan Wright coming back, and Malik Davis coming back. So I could really see them moving Malik Davis to being a slot guy. Last year there were a couple of times where Malik Davis led the way on as far as a receiver. So I would be shocked if Malik Davis doesn't move permanently into that slot. And honestly, Naquan Wright could even play a little bit more on the slot. So I think we'll probably see kind of a change in some of those roles. Kind of like a LaMichael Pirine, who, although was a running back, would often show his versatility and be a very good pass catcher for them 2 years ago. I could see, Malik Davis and Naquan Wright kind of putting in those roles as well, especially when you have DeMarcus Bowman and Lorenzo Lingard. So that is the reason why whenever someone asks me what unit has to be on top of their game for this season to be successful, I always point to the O-line, because there's so many pieces on this offense that's going to be reliant in those trenches. And obviously in the SEC, the battle was won in the trenches. But when you had a quarterback like Kyle Trask, who was able to swing the ball pretty well outside of the pocket, you can kind of hide some of those things. And honestly, the O-line was pretty good at pass protection. So now you're thinking, with all these guys who are known to be very good weapons with their legs, including Emory Jones, who is more of a running quarterback, although he does throw a very good deep ball, and that's something that Dan Mullen has said. He's got a very strong arm. Just needs to work on his accuracy. The O-line needs to be on top of their game. And then you're also going to have to ask those tight ends to block. That's one of the things that I've mentioned quite frequently is Kyle Pitts was an amazing tight end, and he had improved his blocking abilities where it was one of those where he won't cost you anything. He's not as effective blocker as you want, but he's going to do his job, and he's going to, he's going to get you enough time. But Kamora Gamble and Keon Zipper need to improve that side of their game. A few years ago, they had a guy called Deontay Lewis who wasn't known to be a pass catcher, but man, he had some great blocks that led to some incredible touchdowns and important touchdowns, including a game against Michigan in the bowl game, which kind of sealed the game in my opinion. So when you look at a piece like that and a running back like Jordan Carlton, for instance, during the same year, those guys were excellent blockers. They helped the O-line when the O-line might not have been the best O-line in the SEC. Now you're reliant on the O-line trying to figure out the chemistry between the guys, figuring out what the best lineup it is, considering we had issues on the right side. But you also need those tight ends to block very well. So there's going to be a lot of questions for Mullen this year if that running game doesn't succeed as much, because you have so much talent on that running back room that you need to hope that your O-line, your tight ends, everyone's on the page as far as the running game.
Yeah, you hit on something that's probably one of the more underrated aspects of the game, and that's wide receivers blocking in the run game. And by extension, the tight ends now that are so heavily relied on playing in space and getting downfield. And of course, we look at the numbers and the catches, but what doesn't get accounted for is their ability to contribute and be true traditional tight ends and help out in the running game. Maybe only second to the ability of running backs to stay in the pocket and pass protect for the quarterback. That is, of course, vital from the coach's perspective, that we don't necessarily always take into consideration, again, because there's no stat attached to it. But running backs, sometimes young running backs, don't make it out on the field, not because they can't run and catch, because they can't pass protect.
Correct.
And definitely your point about Malik Davis out of the backfield with 31 catches. And what stands out is 12 yards per catch is a huge number for a running back. He was getting downfield on a lot of wheel routes and so forth. And of course, we got Dameon Pierce coming back as the leading rusher, 503 yards, 4.7 per carry, and 4 touchdowns. Not going to relinquish carries easily to the 2 5-stars. Jackie Franchuli, allgators.com on SI. Jackie, we always appreciate you stopping by and giving us the breakdown on the Gators. And you're welcome back anytime.
Thanks, Mark. Thanks for always having me. I love talking to you.